Dr. Oliver L. Austin Jr. was the recipient of the first doctorate in ornithology from Harvard University in 1929 and a world-renowned authority on birds in the 20th century. After serving in World War II, he was posted in Korea and then in occupied Japan to head the Natural Resources section. In Tokyo, Austin met Japan's leading ornithologists and helped them revive the bird societies of Japan. Throughout his time spent in Japan, Dr. Austin captured nearly 1,000 images of scenes such as American expatriate life, Japanese families living in Tokyo and in the countryside, and Japanese veterans entertaining children to sell candy on the streets. In addition, there are extremely rare slides of the Austin family socializing with post-war Japanese aristocrats. His slides, which reveal high artistic quality and composition and provide a unique glimpse into an important era of US-Japan relations, were donated to the Institute on World War II and the Human Experience in 2013 by Tony Austin, Dr. Oliver Austin's son. The collection has been uploaded online and is now available for public viewing. Additionally, the collection was put on display at the Florida State University Museum of Fine Arts as part of the Institute on World War II and the Human Experience exhibit.
The Austin collection is really invaluable in getting these nuanced images of people reconstructing their lives in urban Tokyo, which turned into a kind of almost rural urban village because of the vast amount of destruction involved in the landscape. And so you can see these barracks being constructed, you can see Japanese veterans engaging in street-side entertainments, many in which involve birds. Birds, of course, were Austin's specialty, and birds going to work by purveying these street-side entertainments, such as picking up fortunes for onlookers. And then veterans also were engaged in the kamishibai practice, which is you would take a series of cartoon images and then tell a story. By collecting a group of young children and people from the streets, you would be able to then sell candy afterwards. It also allowed these veterans to reconstruct their lives and to earn money. When many of them were displaced, their families were dead, they couldn't find their homes, and it was just an environment that all of us really cannot imagine from this standpoint, to see a country that was absolutely devastated by war. 90% of all Japanese cities were completely flattened. When Tony Austin, the son of Oliver, came to Japan in December of 1946, he noted that from Yokohama to Tokyo, there were only chimneys left standing from the factories, and it was a complete moonscape. But the trains were running. Interestingly, there were these aspects of the society that had moved forward. And these aspects also were what Austin decided to photograph. A lot of images of festivals that had reappeared, shrine festivals, and then also kind of portraying this sort of seasonal amount of festivities back in what essentially should be a very dark time. But from 46 until 1950, the time period in which we see these images, there are glimmers of hope. And what's so fascinating is it's not just Austin being the man behind the camera imperialistically shooting what he's seeing. His viewers often look back, and they are just as curious about him as he is about them. Though we can see these conditions of power where he is part of the group of imperialist conquerors. Essentially, that's what the occupation was, because MacArthur took the place of Emperor Hirohito, this kind of strong central political figure that kept the country together, ostensibly imposing democracy on Japan. In a very top-down process, and kind of inculcating democracy in the Japanese, almost like they were a teenager under tutelage, which MacArthur made this statement right after the Korean War, that the Japanese were like 12-year-old children. And this kind of sense of that they were unruly children during the war and had to be chastised and then stopped with their negative behaviors. It's something that kind of permeates through with the occupation, especially in the iconic photograph of MacArthur being photographed next to the very much smaller emperor, that now we have the imperial mystique. It's completely gone. Japan has been chastened, and now we have a new regime. That these people need to be inculcated into the workings of democracy. The Austen family was part of this because the son, Tony Austen, became the conversational partner of the current emperor of Japan, Akihito, who was crown prince at that time. He played Monopoly with the Austen boys, bridge as well, and it was very important, according to Elizabeth Vining, who was the primary English tutor of the Crown Prince, to have him meet with ordinary American boys, but they were far from ordinary. The Austen family, they were from the Yankee elite, they were from upper-class New York society. They had a summer home in Massachusetts, and they were very much part of the American aristocracy, and the people that they met, the ornithologists in Japan, the leading ones, like Yamashina Yoshimaro, he was an imperial prince at one time, Prince Takatsukasa, who was the head of the Meiji Shrine. And we can see all these members of upper-class Japanese society being depicted in these photographs. That's absolutely remarkable. They're wearing threadbare suits from the late 1930s, when clothing was still available, but we're at a very early period in Japan's reconstruction. So clothing is the least that is on the mind of the rebuilders.
I would say the Austen collection is probably one of the most important collections we have at the Institute. It's unparalleled for documenting the American and Allied occupation of Japan in World War II. Austen documented virtually every aspect of life in Japan. He not only documents the occupation itself, the interaction of occupation officials with senior Japanese officials, but he also documents everyday life in Japan and Japanese wildlife.
Austen went on several specimen collecting journeys throughout Japan, where he went with both the American military authorities, but then also with people like Hachisuka Masauji, who was a marquis, his Japanese scientific counterparts, in a very important collaboration. He revived the Chogakai, or the Bird Society in Japan, which primarily had been this somewhat dilettantish framework for Japanese ornithological activities, and then became a much more kind of organized group under his initial auspices. And so we see all this from the glimpse of this very early moment in Japan's post-war reconstruction, when Japan is being reframed from being an enemy of the United States to this kind of chastened individual that is now under democratic tutelage. We see how after the occupation, Japan's economy takes off, and we see this democratic country being formed as a kind of bulwark against communism in the rest of Asia. It's just quite remarkable, all these friends that Austen was able to make across this, what used to be a very closed society, and was able to gain access to this family that had been really shrouded within this imperial mystique. We can see how, at least under this initial framework, Austen was very important in kind of jump-starting renewed, at least in terms of zoology and ornithology, renewed endeavors of the scientists under this kind of broader top-down framework.
Years after his time in Japan, in 1955 and 56, Dr. Austen was invited to work as an Air Force scientific observer on the U.S. Navy's Operation Deep Freeze, a preparatory expedition for the 1957 International Geophysical Year, which was an 18-month period of international scientific cooperation and research, particularly related to the Earth's polar regions. In addition to his work on the expedition, Austen conducted research on Adelie and emperor penguins, seals, and implemented a bird banding project for his ornithological work. This part of the Austen collection consists of 170 photographs of his specimens, the Arctic landscape, and equipment used in the operation.
The IGY, International Geophysical Year, is both a reflection of how important the earth sciences were for the military during the Cold War, but it was also an opportunity for scientists from around the world to participate in research. It was both a reflection of the Cold War and in some ways a break from Cold War tensions. And Antarctica was a place in which scientists from nearly a dozen nations were working together on a number of large research questions. And Antarctica becomes a continent for science, a place that is held by treaty to be an area that emphasizes research, that de-emphasizes the previous political claims that nations had made on Antarctic territory. Austin was in the middle of it by being in Operation Deep Freeze. He is all together with other colleagues interacting in a global community. Undoubtedly, he also had more opportunities to experience international cooperation in those years. I think it would be really interesting to look at the photographs that show him with his colleagues. I don't think we know yet who some of those colleagues are. Are they all fellow Americans who are on the ships that are bringing the equipment down into Antarctica, or is there already an international component present there? One of the things that we see in the photographs are the ships loading onto the ice, the solid ice, some of the transport vehicles that will bring people into the Antarctic continent. Remember how difficult that was to get towards the interior of the continent at the beginning of the 20th century. It tended to be dog sleds or other ways. Mechanizing the means of bringing scientists and their equipment into the Antarctic region really made possible a much more thorough and wider exploration of the continent than had been possible. And it's also a help in that there were good color films available for Austin when he did his photography. Having color images gives us a better sense. The photographs that Austin himself took do show a community, in this case particularly of penguins, as they existed at a time period that's now well on 60, 70 years before the present. So there is something that is interesting for the people who are studying those communities to get a sense of what it was like at the time. But when we're looking back as historians, we're trying to understand what it was like to be there, what he experienced at that period of time. My gosh, those photographs then become extraordinary. I think we ought to be looking both at what he photographed and maybe what he didn't photograph. We may see others who saw or experienced a very different Antarctica than he did.